One company once ruled 200 million people, and it wasn't even a country. This is the story of a corporation that became an empire. It had its own army, its own navy, and its own currency. From spices to silver, it reshaped the wealth of nations. But how did a group of London merchants seize a subcontinent? It began on the last day of 1600 in London. Queen Elizabeth I granted a royal charter to bold traders. They won a monopoly on all trade east of Africa. Their target was the fabled riches of the Spice Islands, but the Dutch already dominated these lucrative waters. So the English turned to India instead, seeking cotton, pepper, and profit. In 1608, their first ship reached the port of Surat on India's west coast. But the mighty Mughal Empire ruled India, rich beyond European dreams. The company sent an envoy to the emperor's dazzling court at Agra. Emperor Jahangir granted the English rights to trade and build depots. Fortified trading posts, called factories, rose along Indian shores. Madras, Bombay, and Calcutta became the company's key strongholds. From these ports flowed silk, saltpeter, indigo, and fine textiles. Back in London, company shares made investors extraordinarily wealthy. The company grew into a powerful force within English politics itself. But trade alone could not secure the company's growing ambitions. By 1707, the mighty Mughal Empire began to fracture and decay. Regional rulers broke away, and India dissolved into rival states. The French East India Company emerged as England's fierce rival. Both powers hired Indian soldiers called sepoys to fight their wars. The company transformed from merchants into a military machine. In 1756, the Nawab of Bengal stormed and seized Calcutta. Captured prisoners perished in a cramped cell known as the Black Hole. A young officer named Robert Clive rose to avenge the loss. In 1757, he marched to confront the Nawab at Plassey. Clive's tiny force of 3,000 faced the Nawab's army of 50,000 men. But Clive had secretly bribed the Nawab's own commander, Mir Jafar. As monsoon rain fell, the Nawab's gunpowder was soaked and useless. Mir Jafar's troops stood idle, betraying their ruler in the field. The Nawab fled, and Bengal fell to the company in a single day. Plassey handed the company control of India's richest province. Mir Jafar became puppet Nawab, ruling only at the company's command. Clive returned to England laden with a fortune beyond imagining. In 1765, the Mughal emperor granted the company the Diwani of Bengal. Now the company could tax millions and collect Bengal's vast revenues. Company officials grew rich as Bengal's wealth flowed into private pockets. But greed brought disaster to the land the company now ruled. In 1770, a terrible famine struck Bengal's exhausted people. Perhaps 10 million perished as taxes were still ruthlessly collected. The company's profits soon faltered, and it teetered near bankruptcy. Parliament was forced to step in and rescue the failing giant. The Regulating Act of 1773 placed the company under state oversight. A Governor-General was appointed to rule British India from Calcutta. Warren Hastings became the first to hold this vast new power. He reformed the courts and taxes, yet made powerful enemies. In 1788, Hastings faced impeachment before Parliament in a dramatic public trial. The trial dragged on for 7 long years before he was finally acquitted. Meanwhile, the company's armies pushed deeper into the Indian subcontinent. In the south rose a fierce enemy, Tipu Sultan, the Tiger of Mysore. Tipu allied with France, threatening British power across the peninsula. In 1799, British forces stormed his capital, Seringapatam. Tipu fell fighting to the last, and Mysore passed under company control. Next came the Marathas, a mighty confederacy dominating central India. In brutal wars, the company shattered their power one kingdom at a time. By 1818, the company ruled or controlled nearly all of India. To rule this vast land, the company built a machine of administration unlike any before. A tiny British elite governed tens of millions through Indian clerks and soldiers. The backbone of company power was the sepoy, Indian soldiers in British service. By the 1820s, the company army numbered over 200,000 men. Trade goods flowed westward: cotton, silk, indigo, saltpeter, and spice. But the company's most lucrative new trade lay far to the east, in China. The British craved Chinese tea, but China wanted little in return. To balance the trade, the company sold Indian opium into China. Opium addiction spread across China as company profits soared. When China resisted, Britain answered with warships and the Opium Wars. In 1842, a humbled China ceded Hong Kong and opened its ports to British trade. The company now stood at the height of its power, richer than many kingdoms. Yet across India, resentment simmered beneath the surface of company rule. Land taxes crushed peasants, while old rulers were stripped of their thrones. The doctrine of lapse let the company seize states with no direct male heir. Missionaries and reformers pressed hard against ancient customs and faiths. Among the sepoys, fear grew that their religion itself was under threat. In 1857, new rifle cartridges, rumored greased with cow and pig fat, sparked fury. At Meerut, sepoys rose in open rebellion and marched on Delhi. The Indian rebellion erupted, spreading fire across the northern plains. At Delhi, rebels rallied around the aged Mughal emperor Bahadur Shah as their reluctant figurehead. The uprising spread to Kanpur and Lucknow, where sieges trapped British garrisons and families. At Kanpur, a massacre of British captives horrified the empire and hardened its resolve. British forces struck back with terrible vengeance, burning villages and executing rebels. The relief of Lucknow became legend after months of desperate defense behind broken walls. One by one, the rebel strongholds fell as reinforcements poured in from across the empire. By 1858, the Great Rebellion was crushed, its leaders killed, exiled, or hunted down. The last Mughal emperor was exiled to Burma, ending a dynasty 3 centuries old. The rebellion doomed the company itself, blamed for misrule and catastrophe. In 1858, Parliament abolished company rule and placed India under the Crown. For 2 centuries, Parliament had let merchants wage war, so long as the profits flowed home. The company's charter granted it powers no private firm should ever hold. Its directors bribed politicians and filled Parliament with their own allies. As long as dividends rose, few in London questioned how blood paid for them. But the rebellion of 1857 exposed the cost of leaving an empire to a corporation. Public outrage swept Britain as tales of massacre and misrule reached home. Now the government answered the question merchants never should have held: who rules? In 1858, the Government of India Act stripped the company of its power forever. Its armies, lands, and millions of subjects passed directly to the British Crown. The merchants who fought wars for profit were finally shut down by the empire they built.